Hi all, welcome to the next edition of Amnic Cast. So today we have Dr. Maneesha Asundi. But before that, I want to put a little bit of disclaimer into this. Like our panelists will be sharing their personal opinions, knowledge, and expertise in their respective field. The views are their own, and they do not represent any official positions, policies, or endorsements of the companies they work for. And all these discussions are intended to reflect their individual experiences, insights. With that, I want to welcome Dr. Maneesha, who is the CEO of Patram Enterprise, and she's a practicing FinOps executive. She has a PhD in instructional psychology and technology, and today she is a FinOps executive. And in terms of how she did her PhD, and she moved into training, and she was in the technology field. Today she moved into a FinOps. So, Manisha, why don't you introduce yourself and talk about your journey from your PhD and how it helped you in reaching it to this level?
Thank you, Satya. Thank you for the introduction. When I first came to this country, this is my disclaimer. I came here to avoid getting married in India because I didn't think I was ready, and at that time it was not as progressive. So people would wonder, like, why are you still avoiding marriage? And to avoid those questions, I just came over here and started my PhD in instructional psychology and technology. Even at 25, 30 years ago, they had recognized that let's combine instructional psychology and instructional technology, and combining both of them, we used our knowledge about motivation, psychology, how minds work from womb to tomb, and how can you integrate technology at different ages and stages. That was my main goal. My PhD was really in a field called emergent literacy, meaning how do little children start developing concepts and ideas about themselves as I'm illiterate or not literate. I'm a good reader, I'm not a good reader. The self confidence and the self efficacy that keeps building up happens from a very, very young age. About 8 years, it's almost formulated. It solidifies by 8 years. So imagine how much, what a profound impact we have on kids, that we can make them feel I'm really a good reader or a writer versus no man, I suck at that. And I so imposter syndrome starts from that age onwards. And today, 30 years later, I think I'm still dealing with emergent literacy, except it's now moved to emergent data literacy. Technology has changed so much, but the literacy aspect is still the same. And when we work with technologists, you come across a similar imposter syndrome. Am I a good technologist or not? Can I understand this technology or not? And I quickly figured out if you can keep up with technology and understand the terms and concepts around it, you can pretty much overcome your imposter syndrome. It was a journey, but you can definitely do it.
Awesome. And how did you move into FinOps world itself, right? Like from doing
Oh
PhD,
my
what
gosh. So
made you commit?
that's been a squiggly career path. And I think this is something that a lot of people need to understand. It's never a linear path. As long as you're willing to embrace change and move and curve according to whatever circumstances you come across. So my dream was to become a university professor. You know how in India we revere professors a lot. Education is the highest field. And I thought I had it made it, man. I made it. I got my PhD in education. To me, that was the highest form that I could have achieved. But teaching did not give me that satisfaction because the university requirements in US are very different than what it is in India or what was in India. In my mind, India is like frozen where I left it so many years ago. But I quickly turned from there. So if it didn't bring me joy, I was willing to just drop it, let it go, and move to something that is more fulfilling. And after that experience of, I taught at the University of Alabama in Huntsville. So it did not give me that satisfaction because the focus was more on publishing and I had little kids and I wanted to be with my kids, experience their childhood, be with them, be present with them. So I moved into technology. So instead of teaching at the university, I was teaching at corporate places. And one person gave me an opening. That's all it took. Somebody to have faith in you and say, okay, you know what, you know how to teach. We'll teach you the software. So I learned SAP on the job, but I made a successful career with that for close to 15 years. I was constantly going client to client to client, sliced and diced so many different modules of SAP, so many different versions of SAP. And in fact, at my last SAP project, I was brought 10 years later to help them upgrade from where they were last on the SAP version, because even SAP had stopped supporting that version. And then from there, I came to Mr. Cooper as a IT product manager. And again, as a consultant mindset, you're always thinking, what next, what next, what next? And I saw an opportunity. Project management, I'm not saying is easy, but it's something that I could train people and hand it off to them and say, okay, these are the best practices we've established. This is the way we are going to do it. Now you take it from here, you carry on. And then I pivoted to FinOps because I saw a great opportunity over there. Managing cloud financials, that is the number one challenge in this current world. If you see every company, any company and every company is somewhere on the cloud journey. Somewhere, because everybody is trying to modernize their technology, make sure they are on the cloud. So you could be at the beginning, you could be in the middle, or you could be an advanced cloud user, but you're somewhere on the journey. And my research shows the state of cloud reports that I was reviewing, it showed that 30% of cloud spend goes to waste.
Mm-hmm.
So you plug in your numbers, whether your number is 1 million, 10 million, 100 million. If you can save 30%, I saw that as a great opportunity and ran with it. Figured out what FinOps is. It was not easy, definitely not easy, because again, but being a transformational leader myself, if I don't go through these transformations, I can't bring that transformation journey to, like, I practice what you preach.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Interesting, very, very interesting, right? Now that you moved into the field, right?
uh,
Like, how do you see this evolving, right? In terms of you have been in this field for some time, right? How did you start off? Where do you see this FinOps journey moving forward?
one thing that was constant at the core is this is change. This is a fundamental cultural shift, because just going to the cloud is a cultural shift, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your infrastructure, which used to be on prem, your spend, which you knew how much, exactly how much you spent, you knew who was responsible for it, you had so many things in control. Now when you're in the cloud, you've given up that control to the developers, and
Mm-hmm.
developers can stand up resources, bring them down, and do whatever they want, however they want. And there is very limited oversight, because people need to take accountability and responsibility. So bringing that cloud oversight was one of my best, and I think, that's, I wear it with pride, that without knowing anything about FinOps, but I'm not knowing much about the cloud technology, because I've done projects where we migrated from legacy applications, bringing them on-prem. I've done going from on-prem to going to the cloud. But I've also now done projects that go from cloud A to cloud B,
Wow.
or building cloud native applications. So that was a huge shift for me. And it was a learning experience, especially with the work from home environment that you have, where you can't just be looking over shoulders of, like, hey, developers, how are you guys doing this? And you kind of
Yeah.
like figure it out, right? You have so many options to see and learn vicariously. Now everything is on the cloud, people are remote, and you have to put in an extra effort to figure this out and to learn from each other. And get this, only 8 to 10% of cloud technologists are actually comfortable with cloud tools.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, whenever you ask somebody a question, again, remember that data literacy that I talked about? If you are not comfortable saying, I don't know, or that imposter syndrome just creeps up on you, it's very, very difficult to figure it out. So, getting yourself knowledgeable about FinOps will be one aspect. Brushing up on FinOps concepts and financial concepts is it's another area of opportunity. And because it is so new and so vast, there is plenty for everyone to go around.
Mhm.
All you need to do is take responsibility, take accountability, and have a figure it out mentality. Nobody is going to give it to you on a golden plate and say, here, sir, your dinner is served. You
Mhm.
have to cook up that dinner yourself, figure out how do you mix and match. But what I found was there's plenty of resources. FinOps organization themselves have, and that's how I learned literally through YouTube channels, because every single thing that they had was on the YouTube channel. And I just figured out how I wanted to learn from there and go with it, build up, you kind of connect the dots. And then you take whatever is relevant to you in your role. If you looked at my role as an IT product manager, what business do you have being in FinOps? You don't code, you're not in procurement, you're not in finance. So, what are you doing here?
Mhm.
But I took it up as a challenge that I am going to, this is what I did in my consulting world. I always establish best practices and make scalable and repeatable processes so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. So I just took this as an opportunity. It's like, okay, let's, the top three challenges that FinOps, the state of the FinOps reports will tell you, it's managing the cloud spend is one of the challenge. Security is another challenge, and lack of expertise is another challenge. So, lack of expertise, I said, okay, I can learn through YouTubes, through Slack channels, and simply going and asking and being transparent with people.
Mhm.
I could come to you and say, Satya, I know you do blah, blah, blah. Can you show me how is this related to XYZ? A challenge that you see, like one of the challenges I saw was the FinOps reports will also tell you budgeting and forecasting is a huge challenge,
Mhm.
right? Or do you know where your money is spent?
Mhm.
If you look at a cloud bill, you will get like pages and pages and pages of invoice, but nobody knows how to make sense of that invoice. The cloud service providers have gotten much better now, but a couple years earlier, it was like, if I'm the person signing the check, I just have to sign the check and pay it and keep moving forward. But I literally hit on the brakes, slammed the brakes, paused it, and said, okay, if I take it for my team as a product manager managing the cost, do I know where my cost is going? Do I know which team is costing me how much? So I took one of the FinOps principles is called cost allocations. So I just took
Mhm.
cost allocation as the capability. With that, and I have this poster right on top of my vision where I can see it every day. But with cost allocation came the ability to benchmark. So now my
Mhm.
team knows on a consistent basis this is going to be our monthly cost. We can look for budgeting and forecasting, because if you know what your past trend, historical trend is, you can use that to predict your future. That's not rocket science, right?
Yeah.
It's not rocket science. It's how most people do business. Look at your past experiences and predict your future costs. So I was able to establish budgeting, forecasting practices. Then now with that consistency, if the cost had variations, I could look at why did our cost go up?
Mhm.
Why did our cost go down?
Mhm.
And FinOps tells you cost is very simple: usage times rate.
Yeah.
So now you have only two factors to look at. And I would go back to my team, and anybody can do this. hey
Mhm.
Satya, did our usage go up for some reason? Maybe you had a Black Friday sale or something coming up, your web traffic just spiked up. But if the usage didn't go up, then what happened? Did the rate go up?
Mhm.
And recently, if you know, Google increased the BigQuery pricing model. They made a change. And FinOps Slack channel, we had a buzz around over there like, hey, be on the lookout, be on the lookout. Google is going to change this pricing from, I think they did it in June or July of this year. But at least we watch out for each other. And then
Okay.
you can keep a watch on your costs if you're providing cost oversight and figure out, did that rate change, the pricing model change, did that impact me, did my cost go high, low? And as a product manager, I don't consider myself very technical. So if the costs go high or costs go low, I just have to alert the team members to say, guys, can you take a look? What happened and why are we up or low? And sometimes it could be as simple as, oh, we were trying something in the lower environment and that did not work and it just keeps going in loops. The cloud providers don't care that it's in the lower environment or that it
Yep.
is not working the way you expected. They want the developers to take responsibility and make sure you bring down the resource after you're done. But if the
Yep.
resource keeps running, it's like leaving the lights on that your kids do all the time, and the parents incur the electricity bill. There's no mercy over there. You used it, you pay for it. And as I was saying, 30% is cloud based. This is one of the examples where people didn't bring down the resources and our bills just increase. So these were not rocket science, Satya. These were such easy wins. And FinOps has an amazing community where we keep watch out for each other, we share our experiences, we bring to the table, and we learn from each other. So the Slack community, the FinOps channels, conferences, they have monthly summits, they have a lot of things you can make use of and get prepared proactively.
All right. So you made two interesting points. One, you talked about how FinOps is becoming more left shift towards like
Yeah.
developers are the ones who are managing it, right?
Mhm.
It's a cultural shift, right?
Yeah.
So how do you make sure now you gave the visibility in terms of, hey, everybody can track, is your
Yeah.
cost going up, your usage is going up, but how do you bring the change to the people?
Ooh.
Say that, hey, you need to keep watching because you being a FinOps, you keep watching,
Yeah.
right? I can see that from the way you explain. But how do you make the person who's really spinning up the resources and the people who are using it actually say that, hey, I need to watch out for what I do, right? The analogy that you gave, you need to reach the kid
Mhm.
that, hey, switch off the fan if you are going out. And how do you do that actually?
Change management is very, very difficult. And this is about change because it's a new way of working. It is transforming the way you work, your hierarchy. Like finance could say it's an IT problem. IT would say this is a billing problem. Billing can say procurement didn't do the rate negotiation. So finger pointing can go on and on and on and on. If you have buy-in from higher ups, it's like any change management. You need a champion, you need stakeholders, like who have the power to make decisions. It should come top down approach. You can create frameworks, you can beat the light out of the daylight, you can keep talking like at the cost of sounding like a broken record. But if there is no incentive for the developers, okay, I saved you X amount of dollars. What's in it for me?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So there are ways to do it. What I've seen my counterparts do is that they have gamifications. They have, like Walmart, we heard at FinOpsX, Walmart has, and this is a very high, Tim O'Brien, he shared this, that they have daily stand ups
Mm-hmm.
within the C suite to look at the cost.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my gosh, daily scrum itself is a hard thing to
Yeah.
get developers to keep coming to the daily scrum. But
Mhm.
that's the level of commitment that they have.
Wow.
That if it comes down to a daily, and this is like an atomic habit.
Mhm.
Every day, if you learn something, this is what I used in my own learning journey. It's like I'm going to be 1% better than what I was yesterday and today and tomorrow. So you keep building up on your learning. Walmart actually took that learning to heart and said, we're going to be 1% better every day. They didn't call it like an atomic habit or a
Uh,
1%, but in my mind, it was like, wow. And that's then that leader can take it down to their teams, and this is in their DNA. Then
mhm.
it's not something different and something extra that you have to do, but it's a part of how you grow.
Got it. Got it.
And then cost is something that everybody owns.
Mhm. Mhm.
Otherwise, you can get in this finger pointing game. No, it's,
Yeah.
Satya is
Yeah.
the IT lead. Satya is. Sometimes you chase down, when I was bringing down resources, sometimes, people, one, they don't want to take ownership. People don't want to say, yes, I accidentally left the lights on. Or some of them have shared some funny stories on the Slack channels where, developers will reuse code, and if they reuse the code, they're going to focus on the coding part of it, not on the header payload section of it, where there are certain labels and tags which have to be there. So tagging hygiene is not, it's there but not there. So if
Mhm.
the tag said cost center is equal to Satya's cost center, when Satya's code gets copied to Maneesha, I'm focusing, my code is great, but it's
Mm.
getting built to Satya's cost center because
Wow.
I
Yeah.
really don't care about the top part of it.
Yeah.
It's just tags.
Mm.
But tags could take you a long ways. And if there is this disconnect of, looking at it holistically, not just your coding part and operating like this is my zone and this is where I have to be and this is all I do. So we laugh at it, and that's why I love that Slack channel, because there's so many Slack channels you can be a part of, and you get to hear from different people. Some of them even mentioned that nobody knew cost center, nobody knew what's a cost center, because that's a finance term, and that's always,
Yeah.
accounting people do that. Accounting will not tell you what your cost center is, because it's like, I don't know what you guys use, but the developer, just to keep the ball rolling and wanted to keep the code, you want to deliver value as an agile practice, you want to deliver value. So guess what they wrote for the cost center? You want that field populated, I'll populate that. COSTCENTER. There you go. The code was published, the code went through, because these are not checks and balances that we have unless you get granular and you focus on it and you decide that no, this is an important concept. Let's educate the rest of the community and let it come from either top down or from bottoms up. So let's say if
Right.
I wanted to use this as a best practice, but it's only in my head and I haven't shared it, and Satya is not a mind reader, Satya is not going to know what the cost center
Yeah.
importance is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, there are people build dashboards, and now the cloud providers have gotten really, really good at services that they offer. In fact, Google also has, they have a FinOps score.
Mhm.
So their AI will scan everything that you're doing and assign you a score 1 through 5, 5 being the best. So when, if you have a low score, you have the visibility that, okay, I need to do something that could improve my FinOps practices.
Got it. Got it.
Or they'll tell you your resources are maxed out, your resources are underutilized, overutilized, whatever they have. But then you can take that, go to your developers and figure out like, hey, is this something that we can use? Is this something we can do? AWS, for example, they have a they have a feature because they are constantly coming up with new practices. So they have 600 cost optimization tools.
Mhm.
600. This was the
Mhm.
last when I saw their YouTube.
Yeah.
Out of that 600, so now they have a optimizer for the optimizer. So that optimizer will scan through these 600 things and tell you, for your situation, this is the best thing for you to use. So you don't have to do that mental work, and you can just rely on the expertise that the cloud provider themselves bring. So it's improved a lot, but it's growing at an amazing pace. And sometimes you feel, I just can't catch up because there's so much to learn. And get this, if you think this
So,
is a
sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
no, if you think this is a problem with one cloud provider, 80% of the organizations are on multi-cloud strategies.
Mhm. Mhm.
So now your technologists have to be conversant and literate and data literacy on not just one cloud service provider, but multiple cloud service providers.
Yeah.
It's
So,
challenging. It's challenging for sure.
how do you? So, let's say for companies who are at the early stage, right? You talked about how Google scores between like FinOps 1 to 5 kind of stuff. Now, if a company wants to roll out a FinOps practice, right?
Mhm.
How do you start? Where do you start, and how do you actually do it?
That's a very good question. It can be overwhelming, but it's doable.
Mm-hmm.
FinOps org has a framework that they give you. So you can decide what domains, and within those domains, what capabilities you want to bring in. So there is no way out. You have to brush up your knowledge about the impact of all these practices,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now we also have, I'm the meetup organizer for the Dallas area. So you can go join meetups, you can attend meetups and figure out how do you want to, learn from each other, get some expertise. We had a example, we last time we hosted at Southwest campus. So
Okay.
Southwest shared that they brought a third party to help them out because
Mm-hmm.
they didn't have the expertise themselves. So they brought a third party provider, and it saved them a lot of headache because these providers already have that expertise with them. There's another company called Vega, for example. It's so they provide these third party services, but in Vega, every employee is a FinOps practitioner certified,
Yeah.
if not FinOps professional. So FinOps has many different courses now, but the two levels of courses, one is a basic practitioner, and then the higher one is a professional, which is a more deeper course. So when that becomes a part of your DNA, it then becomes easier because it is pretty challenging. So the first time I saw this, it was like, whoa, this is way too much. If you look at the cloud providers console, whether it's the Google console or the Azure console, it's got too much information, and then you get information overload, or you could get a decision fatigue, like, I don't know what I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time you connect the dots through all these YouTubes and resources and books and their monthly summits or whatever you gather your knowledge from, it takes an army to go build this. But if you have a strong architecture, good networking, good infrastructure, security, every team has to play their part. It's
Mm-hmm.
not one person's responsibility to go figure it out. So it's a team game, it's a team effort. And it really, I think, in my opinion, if you take help of a third party provider, it is very helpful because Google, for example, they will give you some credits to be used, and I'm sure any cloud provider will do that. They give you X amount of credit to use for their professional services to come in and help you out.
Got it. Got it. And how do you see the collaboration and communication playing a part in this whole thing? Because it's all about how from FinOps you have to go around talking to all these departments, right?
Mhm.
And what are some of the strategies that you have adopted to be able to go and interface with so many different teams?
Yeah, that could be hard, and again, it just depends on the dynamics, right? Some organizations will be like, Satya, you stay in your lane. You have no business coming and telling me, you manage your team, I'll manage my team. Then it's very difficult to break through and to make sure you have it. But if you're like a Walmart type of an organization where top down, that is the mandate that goes down, then it becomes much easier to collaborate. There are some Southwest example that I gave you. What they do is, she shared with us that they have monthly reports, they have monthly meetings. So just like you go as a product manager, if I'm doing requirements gathering, right? When I build my backlog, my Azure DevOps backlog, I keep meeting with every team, understanding what's your roadmap for you to get there. What is it that my team has to do? And we collaborate amongst different teams to bring it all together. So those kind of practices are inevitable. You have to have that. Now, simply sending the reports out to higher management will not cut it, because they'll be like, most, sometimes you tease them, hey Satya, did you see that report I sent, or do you have this rule, anything that's coming from Maneesha, put it in the deleted folders or something that I'll look at it later on, right? Because cost may not be as important to you. It should be, but maybe you have different priorities. Maybe that's not your priority right now, because nobody's holding you accountable for it. So it has to come top down. And I think it's a beautiful, this is how I built my tribe. And this has been my secret sauce for success wherever I've been. If you are willing to show your vulnerability, because when I started with SAP, for example, I didn't know SAP. I know how to teach, I know how to present, but I don't know the software. Yet I had to stand in front and say, this is how your daily life is changing. This is what you used to do. This is what you do now.
Yeah.
Same approach can be taken over here. When you explain to them what it is and how these reports impact, and either gamify it or maybe incentivize the people so that they have some stake, why should I even care about the cost? But the beauty of working with this, when you wear vulnerability up your sleeve, and you don't let that imposter syndrome eat you up, because it doesn't exist, by the way. If you hear Reshma Saujani, you should absolutely hear her speech. She says imposter syndrome is non-existent, so don't nurture it and don't feed it and don't keep focusing on it, because we'll come to that later. But I wore my vulnerability up my sleeve. I went to my team and I said, look, guys, I don't understand these concepts. And once you let your guard down, they are more willing to take you in their inner circle. And that's how I built my tribe. And now, whenever I have anything, like if I have to go to security, if I have to go to infra, if I have to go to network questions, they are very responsive and more willing to talk to me, because I gave them the respect by first respectfully coming out and saying, I don't understand. Can you help me figure this out? And together we can. That's my tagline. I may not have it all together, but together we have it all. It is not a single player game. We have to play this together, and that's more fun.
Awesome.
And I'm
Together
a
we.
people person. For me, relationships matter, and I get to build relationships in this journey. It's just beautiful.
Awesome. I think we are almost in the fag end of our Amnic Cast. So, anything in terms of, we covered quite a bit of ground, right? In terms of setting
Yeah.
up FinOps, what are the resources at FinOps? Anything that you want to share with the audience in terms of, hey, these are the best practices that you have adopted, right? What are the key takeaways that you can actually share with them?
I think the best source for me had been finops.org. Figure that out, because they've got a nice framework, they've got a nice structure. And that structure is cloud agnostic. It is they even go through the crawl, walk, run stages, so you know where you belong and you know where you are. Not all capabilities are equal. So at some capabilities you may be at a crawl stage, at some capabilities, like for me right now, I consider my cost allocation, I'm on the run stage. But if you ask me for managing commitment based discounts, I might be that capability, I might put my rate myself or my knowledge at a crawl stage, because I haven't even started that.
Mhm.
right? So that framework, because it's a framework and it's a repeatable, it's scalable, it gives you the opportunity to learn a lot and follow the YouTube channels. FinOps, I wear that pin with pride.
Wow.
And I'm also a women's advocate, so this is for the women's organization that I support. Build your tribe, join a tribe. If you're in Dallas, come to our meetup, and almost any city will have their meetups over there. So go join those meetups. And there you meet not just for networking, not just for a job, not just for a connection, but genuinely to learn some more. And be a continuous learner, develop atomic habits, take a bet on yourself, and take pride in your work. Don't shy out. It's a fun thing, and there is so much for everyone to go around. It's abundantly available. You just have to take accountability and decide to run with it.
Awesome, Manisha. Thanks for sharing. I think very, very informative. I would just want probably a request from my side is like if you can collate these resources,
Sure.
maybe part of the LinkedIn stuff, we will also put, hey, this is how you could traverse, right? In
Yep.
FinOps.org. How did you do?
Yeah.
So
Why
that
reinvent the wheel?
because I think it really shows in terms of how did you acquire the knowledge, and you have a very methodical way of going into
Mhm.
different channels, right? If you can just put that, it will be amazing for everyone who comes into this podcast in terms of, hey,
Mhm.
how do I actually become a Finox person? How do I roll it out, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think thanks for sharing all these things. Thanks, Manisha.
My
Pleasure.
pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. Namaste.